I am joined right now by a very impressive human being. We got Jeremy Newman, the president right now of KISMIF. We're also going to say it's keep it simple, make it fun. We also have Nevada Outdoor Adventures. There's a lot of different things for this. We're all talking about the 6th annual golf tournament coming up this weekend at Wild Horse Golf Club. But Jeremy, it's great to be with you. We have a lot to talk about. First of all, you're the president of this great organization. Tell us a little bit about what I like saying KISMIF. Sure. I think it sounds fun, but Nevada Outdoor Adventures might be more telling. Tell us what this whole foundation is really about.
Thanks, Mike. The KISMIF was created as a way in which to bridge a gap that was clearly happening here in Nevada, not just in Las Vegas, where giving individuals with any form of disability an opportunity to participate in outdoor activities. And that's really what we do. And in creating these opportunities for these adventures, it really is exciting, especially for the people that have a disability and have never done anything outside.
And let's talk about your history and your past, because I do think there's a magic to being outside in nature. Totally. And you're a guy, you have a great tan. We were talking about that off air, but it's because you meditate a lot outside. You spend a lot of time outside. And for a lot of people who have gone through tough situations, circumstances, they might be paralyzed, they might be handicapped, whatever it is, to them, I'm assuming they must feel a lot of the time, my ability to interact with the outdoors is now going to be limited. So this is a great organization, what you're doing, because you're bridging that gap for so many people.
Totally. And that's a great point. I hit the ground skydiving at 100 miles an hour. And while I was in the hospital, I had friends and coworkers coming to the hospital and encouraging me to come back to work as a strength coach. And I thought, how the heck am I going to do that? And we'll figure it out. And that was kind of like how I began to live my life. I came right back to work after I got out of the hospital for being there for 2.5 months. And I went right back to work. And then I became a wheelchair athlete.
9 months after this accident, you were back competing in triathlons all over the globe.
I wasn't competing in 9 months, but yes, you
were training.
I definitely was training, and I started doing 5K and 10K races locally just to kind of get myself together.
Let's talk about this accident, because this occurred back in 1997.
Correct.
You were skydiving. I'm assuming you had a zest for the thrill of life, right?
That would be putting it mildly, yes. And to be clear for your listeners, it wasn't an accident.
Tell us what happened that day, if you don't mind.
I was, in a nutshell, I was racing another skydiver to the ground, and I won.
And take us to that moment. What is that? Do you remember what it feels like?
I remember everything, yeah.
What does it feel like?
Well, okay. So I'm assuming you're asking me, what does it feel like when I hit the ground?
Yes.
Or, okay, got it.
Well, both.
Well,
what does it feel like? Because I would never skydive, because I'm terrified of exactly what happened to you.
What happened to me is something that I caused to happen. I'll break it down real simply. I was racing another skydiver to the ground who was much more experienced than I was. He had a smaller canopy than I did. I was much more of a beginner. I only had a couple hundred jumps. He had several thousand. And once we were under we jumped out at 13,000 feet. We did our little routine in the air, and then at 2,000 feet, we tracked away from one another and opened up our parachutes. And we're descending toward the drop zone under canopy. And it became very clear to me that he was moving faster through the air than I was, and I wasn't having that. So I did a very dangerous thing. You know how like your ceiling is composed of these tiles? That's the same thing. A parachute is composed of chambers. And I reached up and collapsed the outside lines of the chamber and made my canopy smaller. I refer to that as ego malfunction number 1. Ego malfunction number 2 was once the canopy was a little smaller, I felt like I wasn't going fast enough. And I tried to collapse the next set of cells, which in turn collapsed my entire canopy, and I'm now coming down like Wile E. Coyote under a streamer. We're taught to immediately cut away and pull your reserve chute in the event of a total malfunction like this. Well, one of many things that you and your listeners don't know about me, when I was a child, I was picked on by bullies because I was had buck teeth, I had pimples, and I was chubby, and so I got picked on a lot. And you didn't want to be my friend because if you were my friend, you got picked on too. So I was kind of ostracized as a kid, and I knew that anyone that came down at the drop zone under a reserve, everyone would say, "What happened? Why'd you have to pull your reserve?" And oftentimes people would get ostracized because they were doing something dangerous, unsafe, whatever, and they would say, "Don't jump with him because he's unsafe." So I'm like, okay. I knew in those milliseconds that this was happening. I was assessing everything. I knew that I needed to pull the reserve chute, but I also knew that if I did, I would likely face that same kind of scrutiny, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to repeat my childhood. This was happening in, lightning speed.
Oh my God.
And I opted for fixing the problem. That was ego malfunction number 3, and which was kicking and pulling the lines apart. And I'm definitely spinning in the direction of the twist rather. And my canopy was slowly opening. Now, on your wrist, you wear a very big watch called an altimeter. It tells you your altitude. And I'm looking at it. You're supposed to be looking at it straight on, and I'm looking at it at an angle because I'm looking up at the sky at my parachute. Well, I wasn't looking at it at the right angle, so it wasn't telling me the correct altitude.
Oh.
So I assumed that I had more time than I did. And when I realized that this is not opening up fast enough, I went to pull the reserve chute, but too late. Hit the ground.
How many times had you been skydiving before this incident? Like, was it thousands?
I should know this. No. Gosh, I wish. I wouldn't have done this if I had thousands of jumps. I had under 250.
Oh, still. Okay.
But I was
That's
experienced. Yeah. No, I was experienced enough to be solo jumping with another skydiver. Yeah.
Wow. You know what's so striking, Jeremy, is, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners are gauging this from the conversation, is how positive of a human being you have such a great mentality and outlook on life. How? What's the secret? I mean, I think a lot of people, let's not beat around the bush. A lot of people, if they had gone through this, I'm sweating just listening to this story replayed from your mouth. A lot of people would not be able to have a positive outlook on life and the world. How did you turn around, from this? Were there there must have been days that were very dark after this circumstance. How do you move forward and have this beautiful outlook on life as a human being?
Excellent question. Have you ever heard the expression, how do you eat an elephant?
No.
One bite at a time. And every day of my life since I woke up from being in a coma for a month, I have been surrounded by people that were uplifting, encouraging, inspirational. And I mean, even while I was in a coma, even while I was in intensive care, and when I was in the operating room, my mother and my sisters and my family flew to California where this happened, and were there every minute. And they created this bubble around me of positivity, even while I was not in my body.
And now it must be such a privilege, because this new role you have as the president of Nevada Outdoors, of KISMIF, Keep It Simple, Make It Fun, you're the perfect guy for when you told me this was a new position and you haven't done a lot of media, I was like, wow, you got to be, this is like your first interview, right?
Very much.
You have to be out front and center, because for every single person who's in a similar circumstance to you, you're the most perfect guy on earth to talk to, I would assume.
Okay. Yeah. But, I recognize that, I'm sitting in a wheelchair and this is how I kind of get around, and I drive with hand controls in my car. But for all intents and purposes, I mean, I get people give me the stink eye when I park in a handicap spot, because they think, how is this guy, he's not disabled. They really think that until they see my wheelchair. And then sometimes if they're actually have some words with me, they apologize for making an assumption. But, I can see it in people's eyes. And they have that, oh, I didn't know.
So what's the thing that everybody at home listening right now, I want to talk more about the golf tournament, but let's just focus on one nugget. I think that everybody at home, as a take-home message, no matter what your circumstance in life, you have a lot of insight, how do you eat an elephant? I've never heard that one before. what's something at home everybody, no matter their circumstance, just a nugget they can take from you as a message that can just improve their outlook, improve their happiness, improve the way that they're interacting with life? Because I think I love your mindset, I love your mentality, I love your confidence, and I also love the way that you interact with the world, because you could have that outlook and that perspective and that mentality, but I think it's such a beautiful thing that you're keeping up with the things that you love, and you're keeping up with engaging with the world on multiple levels. So what's something at home that you can teach our audience that we can implement? And I'm being selfish here because I want to do this as well.
I don't think it's a selfish request. I think it's a natural one. And the thing that comes up for me initially when you ask that question, it's really simple. It's we can have, be, and do anything we want. We just have to set our mind to it and not let anyone or anything get in the way of that. And oftentimes the biggest obstacle is our own self, how we talk to ourselves. And everything then comes out of that. What we're thinking, what we're saying, these are vibrations. Like a pebble in a pond creates ripples. And this is the law of attraction at its simplest.
I love it. Tell us real quickly. So everybody who wants to get involved with this organization, all the good stuff that you're doing, this is a great opportunity this weekend to come out to the 6th annual golf tournament. Tell us this Friday, a lot of excitement there. You can go to golf.kismiflv.org, or you could also go to the Nevada Outdoors.
Nevada Outdoor it's NVOutdoorAdventures.com.
Yeah.
Or
.org.
It's the same.
Either one, and it will take you there. What is this event going to be like? What's the special stuff going on?
We've got some really cool things that I don't want to give it too much away, because one of the we're doing some silent auctions and some really cool closest to the pin, longest drive, typical golf course giveaways and things that are typical for events and rather tournaments. However, we've got one particular individual that is a world champion long drive para golfer.
Oh, wow.
And in case some of you don't know what para golfing is, it's people with a disability. And he designed a piece of golfing equipment that gets him standing and golfing just like you or
fascinating.
Everyone else. It's amazing. I haven't used it yet. I've been introduced to him. I haven't actually met the individual yet. I'm meeting him for the first time tomorrow and going to swing a golf club for the first time ever tomorrow.
Wow.
And then on Friday is the event.
There you go.
Wow. So that's going to be there, that equipment for individuals to be able to use, because one of the holes that we're going to be doing is pick your disability. A person can do a one arm, one leg, blind, or being in a wheelchair. I will also have a stationary wheelchair that I use, an extra one that it's actually in my car.
Gotcha. I saw that coming on the way in. And the stuff that you have accomplished as an athlete, I mean, just to touch on that real quickly, after your accident, you've done so much. I mean, triathlete, across the globe, really, competing at a high level. How has that felt just after the fact, to be competing at a high level and to be, still attacking life like that, but also being an elite level athlete?
That's a terrific question. And I'll be honest with you, I never really felt like I was an elite athlete. I was just doing something that I loved doing. I fell in love with the sport of triathlon months after I hit the ground and woke up after I came out of the coma and got out of the hospital. And it just was a natural progression of my love and enthusiasm for being an athlete transferred into this sport. I mean, I was a gymnast in high school and I rode crew in college. So those were two very intense sports. And I brought that, and I'd been a strength coach for 30 years. And so I brought that passion and that enthusiasm into triathlon, and I just got better and better and better. And I got sponsors and it was kind of, there were some highlights. Yeah. Like going to my first world championships and being in the top 10, that was whoa, that was kind of cool. And then, I got better and better and better. And I really wasn't competing against the other athletes. I was competing against myself and my time. And that is what I really loved. It reminded me of my days at crew, and also being a gymnast, you are competing on a team, but it's your individual efforts are what's going to make the biggest difference.
Lastly, I want to ask you this because I think it's so fascinating. I love how in touch you are with yourself. Were you as in touch with yourself as you were talking about being bullied as a child and all that kind of stuff? Kids not wanting to associate with you because of fear that they're going to be rejected or made fun of as well. Did you have this ability to look within yourself prior to the accident, or was this something that you kind of came to terms with more reflection wise after this accident? Because I think that would be a very interesting answer to hear.
Oof, wow, this is that's a deep question, and I recognize that I understand, especially for your I was going to say your users, your listeners,
Yeah.
that referring to it as an accident is natural, but for me it was not an accident. I hit the ground on May 24th, 1997 because of my ego. And to directly answer your question, I would have to guess and say no. I was not as in touch with my body and certainly the outside world. I remember the life that I was living prior to hitting the ground was pretty selfish, and everything was about me and what could I get out of this situation, this scenario, this person, this whatever, rather than looking at how can I contribute and be of service. It's a very different life that I'm living today than I was back in 95 or 96.
Wow. Well, you have such a magnetic energy about you. I wasn't having a bad day. I was just like not having, it's just like, the grind of everyday life. Sometimes it just wears and tears on you. And just by talking to you and hearing your story and being in your orbit, it's a beautiful thing. And you definitely want to look up this guy, Jeremy Newman, right here, this guy that's with me right now. He's a very impressive human being. We got to have you come back in just to talk about everything. I want to hear about jazz and your biological father and all that stuff. But make sure you guys go do this. Listen, you're going to go to nvoutdooradventures.org.com. That's going to take you to KISMIFLV.org. It's the same thing as golf.kismiflv.org. That's the 6th annual golf tournament happening this weekend on Friday. Make sure you go check it out. And if you can't make the golf tournament, just in general, go check out everything. Keep it simple, make it fun, what it's really about. It's a great organization. As you can see, there's so many people, that are in similar situations to our great guest today. And to have this positivity, to have this outlook, it's a great thing for all humanity. And I think it's an impressive thing. And Jeremy, I'm going to try to start eating this elephant right now. I mean, I'm bite by bite. That's how you do it. You just start chewing, right?
One foot in front of the other.
That's how you do it. Thank you so much for being here. Also, just to tell you what kind of a genius this guy is, also one of the co-founders of Beachbody, which is, Tony Horton, all the great stuff he did with P90X. So you're a very special human being. Thank you so much for being with us. Any last words you want to say?
Just to remind everyone that anything you set your mind to, you can achieve. Just believe. Because in order to achieve, you must believe before you achieve it. Does that make sense?
I love it. Okay. It makes a lot of sense. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Jeremy, you're the best. We appreciate it.